All right, today we're diving into something, well, it's a question that might make you kind of scratch your head at first.
Yeah.
When should Muslims and Christians apologize to each other? We're looking at an article that, really digs into this whole idea.
Yeah.
And I think it's relevant to anyone who's, interested in how different faiths interact,
Sure.
or maybe the role of apology in history in general, or even just wants to understand these two big world religions better.
Absolutely. And I think what's so interesting here is the article's point is that, apologies, they're not just about saying, oops, my bad, right? It's deeper than that. It's about this humility, recognizing that your actions actually had an impact on someone else.
Oh.
And just remembering that, at the end of the day, we're all human.
So it's less about dwelling on the past and more about using that to actually build a better future.
Exactly. And both Christianity and Islam, they really emphasize this whole idea of asking for forgiveness and actually granting it.
Right? Take the Bible, for example.
Okay.
Matthew 5:23-24. Jesus actually says you should go reconcile with your brother before you even, think about offering gifts at the altar.
Huh. Interesting.
Right. And in the Quran, too, verse 42.4z, it makes this point that Allah rewards those who forgive and those who make amends.
So both faiths are on the same page that, sorry is important spiritually. But when should these apologies actually happen between Muslims and Christians? It can't just be a blanket apology for everything, can it?
No, not at all. It's way more nuanced than that. The article goes into specific situations where these apologies are really important.
Okay.
And it starts by asking, when should Christians apologize to Muslims? And a big one that comes up is historical wrongs. And the Crusades are kind of the elephant in the room here.
Yeah. Wow. That's centuries of war fueled by religious zealotry and, unimaginable violence on both sides.
Yeah,
the scale of it all is hard to even grasp.
And, even though obviously no one alive today was actually there.
That legacy of mistrust and pain, it still lingers.
Yeah, it's like a wound that never fully healed, right?
Exactly. And think about this, Pope John Paul II in the year 2000.
Yeah.
He apologized for the church's role in the Crusades.
Wow.
Centuries later, right?
Yeah.
But the article argues that these formal apologies can be a powerful first step to start to heal those wounds.
That makes me think about, when we discuss the Crusades, it's often from a European perspective. What are some examples of, how they impacted the Muslim world specifically, culturally, politically?
That's a great point. Take the sacking of Baghdad in 1258.
Yeah.
Crusader armies it was a turning point. They destroyed so many books and libraries.
Oh, wow.
It actually set back intellectual and scientific progress in the Islamic world for generations.
It's hard to fathom that.
And to this day, many Muslims remember that event as a symbol of Western aggression and cultural destruction.
So even if individuals weren't directly part of the Crusades, understanding their impact on the other side's history and culture, that's crucial for building empathy, right?
Totally. It's about acknowledging that these events, even centuries ago, they can still have these ripple effects that shape interfaith relations today.
Wow.
But beyond just saying sorry for historical wrongs, the article says another area for apologies is confronting these harmful stereotypes and misrepresentations of Islam that are out there.
And that's something we still see today, even outside of religion, right?
Absolutely.
In movies, in the news, Muslims are often portrayed as inherently violent, or Islam is presented as this monolithic, unchanging thing.
It's a huge problem, and these portrayals have real-world consequences, contributing to prejudice and discrimination against Muslims. So the article is saying Christians need to apologize for perpetuating these stereotypes, whether it's in casual conversations or social media, or even the way they teach about Islam.
But how do we even get to the root of these stereotypes? Are they all just based on religious differences, or are there deeper cultural and historical factors at play?
That's where it gets really interesting. Some people argue that certain stereotypes, associating Islam with violence, it comes from looking at history in a very selective way.
Right.
focusing on periods of conflict, but ignoring centuries of peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange between Muslims and Christians.
So it's not enough to just say, sorry for the stereotypes. It's about actually understanding where they come from and actively working to dismantle them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing how powerful narratives are and how they shape our perceptions of entire groups of people. Now, another area the article dives into is proselytization.
Okay.
Sharing your faith is a big part of Christianity. But the article says that aggressive or disrespectful evangelism can be really hurtful to Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine if someone's constantly trying to convert you, even after you said, hey, I'm not interested, that could feel super disrespectful and intrusive.
Right. It's about recognizing boundaries and approaching these interfaith dialogues with humility and respect. So the article suggests that Christians should apologize when their efforts to convert kind of cross the line into disrespect, whether it's belittling Islamic beliefs or using these manipulative tactics. Instead, what's needed is this open and honest dialogue where both sides are treated with respect.
So it seems like, genuine dialogue requires a willingness to listen and learn from each other rather than trying to win some theological debate.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about historical wrongs, challenging stereotypes, and being mindful of how we share our faith. These are all areas where Christians might need to offer apologies to Muslims.
Right.
What about the other side of the coin, though? When should Muslims apologize to Christians?
Well, the article dives into that too. And one of the most important things it brings up is acknowledging acts of violence committed in the name of Islam, even if they totally go against the real teachings of the faith.
It's a tough one because you have these extremist groups claiming to act for Islam, but their actions are condemned by the vast majority of Muslims worldwide. Like, how do we even grapple with that tension?
It's definitely complex, but the impact of that violence on Christian communities, especially in places like Iraq, Syria, or Nigeria, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
The article suggests that Muslims who reject that extremism can offer apologies as a really powerful gesture of solidarity with the victims.
It's like saying, we see your pain, we grieve with you, and we stand against those who twisted our faith to justify these horrific acts.
Exactly. It's a way of separating the actions of extremists from the real teachings of Islam and showing compassion to those who have been hurt. But the article goes even deeper, pointing out that sometimes Muslims can also misrepresent Christianity, especially in places where Muslims are the majority.
So just as some Christians hold inaccurate views about Islam, some Muslims might have misconceptions about Christianity too.
Right. They might paint all Christians as, Western imperialists or morally corrupt, ignoring the diversity within Christianity and alienating local Christian communities.
Wow.
So the article says that apologies for these harmful stereotypes are also crucial for building trust and understanding.
It seems like both sides can kind of fall into the trap of making generalizations and not seeing the nuances within the other faith.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's unfortunate, but in some Muslim majority countries, Christians face actual persecution, like restrictions on worship, trouble building churches, or even punishment for converting to Christianity.
It's a sad reality.
It's really unsettling to hear.
And, while these actions are often driven by political or cultural factors more than Islamic teachings, the article really emphasizes that Muslims who condone or participate in that stuff, they should apologize.
Because it goes against the core Islamic principle of religious freedom, right?
Exactly. The Quran clearly says there shall be no compulsion in acceptance of the religion.
Right.
So any form of religious intolerance goes against Islamic teachings.
The article also reminds us about the Islamic emphasis on the rights of neighbors regardless of their faith. It makes me think of that beautiful saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, "He is not a believer whose neighbor does not feel safe from his harm."
Exactly. And that applies to, all aspects of being a neighbor, treating each other with respect, making sure their basic needs are met.
Yeah.
So if Muslims are neglecting the rights of their Christian neighbors, whether it's through social exclusion, unfair treatment, or outright hostility, an apology is absolutely necessary.
So on both sides, it's about owning up to the ways we've fallen short, both individually and collectively. But this all feels like just the first step. Like, how do we move from apologies to actually building a lasting culture of mutual respect and understanding? That's where it gets really interesting, right?
You're absolutely right. The article goes beyond just saying sorry and outlines how to create this deeper culture of mutual respect and understanding between Muslims and Christians.
All right.
And that's what we'll explore next. So the first thing the article says is apologies, they shouldn't be about one faith trying to prove it's better than the other.
Right.
It's about realizing we're all human, We all mess up, and we can all learn from those mistakes,
It's about moving past the blame game and focusing on that shared humanity.
Exactly. And both Islam and Christianity, they put a lot of emphasis on compassion, on justice, and on recognizing everyone's worth as a human being.
Yeah.
And when we approach apologies from that shared place, they become way more meaningful and sincere.
It's like the difference between saying sorry because you have to versus because you actually care about the other person.
Exactly. The article even gives some real-world examples.
Okay.
Like imagine Muslims and Christians working side by side to fight poverty or tackling climate change.
Yeah, those are issues that affect everyone, no matter what you believe.
Exactly. When we join forces to face those challenges, it shows we're committed to those shared values like compassion and justice.
Right.
And it creates a space where apologies just feel more natural and meaningful. It's about action, not just words.
So it's not enough to just say the words, you got to back it up with real change.
Right. The article also makes this point that we can't just wait around for our religious leaders to apologize for things.
Yeah.
We all have a responsibility to own up to what we say and do.
Yeah.
Like if you've said something hurtful about another faith or treated someone badly because of their religion, don't wait for someone else to apologize.
Right. Take ownership and make things right yourself.
Yeah, exactly. We each have the power to create a culture of respect and understanding.
Yeah.
And it starts with how we behave. But it's not just about offering apologies, it's also about being open to receiving them.
I imagine that can be tough, especially if there's a lot of hurt there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But holding on to anger and resentment just keeps that cycle of pain going. When someone offers a genuine apology, even if it's for something that happened a long time ago, being able to forgive can be really freeing.
It's about letting go of that burden and moving on, right?
Yes. And the article stresses that apologies, they shouldn't be the end of the conversation.
Okay.
They should be the start of a deeper dialogue.
So instead of just saying sorry and moving on, use those moments to actually learn from each other.
Exactly. Muslims and Christians should use apologies as a jumping off point to ask deeper questions like, why did this misunderstanding even happen?
Yeah.
Or how can we prevent this from happening again?
Right.
It's about building empathy and understanding.
It sounds like it's about acknowledging we might have different beliefs, but that doesn't mean we can't respect and learn from each other.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point. The balance between criticism and respect.
Okay.
Both Muslims and Christians might have theological differences that lead them to critique the other faith.
That's bound to happen when you have two different belief systems, right?
Right.
But it's all about how you approach those differences.
You got it. The article emphasizes that it's totally possible to disagree, even critique someone's beliefs, without resorting to insults or generalizations.
Right.
We should always aim for respectful dialogue, recognizing that even if we don't agree, that person still deserves our respect.
It's like that golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated.
Exactly. And when we inevitably fall short of that, an apology is needed. Like if our criticism becomes disrespectful, we need to own that and ask for forgiveness.
So it's about realizing that even though we may have strong beliefs, that doesn't give us a free pass to treat others poorly.
That's really what the article is getting at.
Yeah.
The power of an apology to change relationships and build understanding. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and working towards a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected.
It's a powerful vision, like we're moving beyond blaming each other and embracing the possibility of genuine reconciliation.
Yes. And the article ends with this really thought-provoking question. In a world full of religious tension, could the willingness to say sorry and the humility to accept that apology be the most genuine expression of our shared values?
Wow, that really makes you think. Like, true peace comes not from proving who's right or wrong, but from admitting we all make mistakes and need forgiveness.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from winning arguments to building bridges.
And that's a challenge for all of us, no matter what our background is. What are your thoughts on how this applies to the average listener?
That's a great question. I think the article challenges us to think about apologies in our own lives.
Okay.
Are we willing to admit our mistakes, to forgive others, to have those tough conversations with humility and respect?
Yeah, it really makes you think about how we treat people every day, especially those who believe different things than us.
It's a call to action for us to really look at our own biases, be careful about what we say and do, and be ready to forgive even when it's hard, you know?
Because in the end, it's not about winning arguments about religion or being right. It's about that shared humanity, working towards a world where everyone feels seen and respected.
That's it. That's the heart of it. And that's where the real power of apology comes in. Not just fixing the past, but creating a future where understanding and compassion win out.
It's kind of inspiring to think that even small acts of kindness and forgiveness can make a difference.
Absolutely. Those small things can ripple outward and create a more just and compassionate world for everyone.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. As we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you hope listeners will hold on to?
I think it's this. Having the courage to apologize and the grace to accept an apology, those are powerful things. They help us bridge divides and build understanding, and it's a journey we can all be on, no matter our background or beliefs.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been really insightful.
My pleasure.
And remember, everyone, the conversation doesn't stop here.
Keep exploring, keep learning, keep building those bridges of understanding in your own lives.
And to all our listeners, we really encourage you to think about how apology shows up in your own life. Are there relationships that could use a sincere, "I'm sorry"? How can you be part of making things right and just understanding to your community? Keep diving deep.